All right. So, can you guys see, or not yet? Here we go. Can you see the presentation on my screen? If someone can give me a thumbs up, that'd be great. Thank you. Okay, so SwimSafe. SwimSafe is a public safety campaign that's targeted at adult vulnerable swimmers. So we look at vulnerable swimmers as predominantly, in the past, we've been looking at them as predominantly children, and we have a program in place for children and parents called Watch Around Water. I'm sure you're all familiar with Watch Around Water. So SwimSafe is the other side of the coin, and it is a campaign that is targeted at adult vulnerable swimmers who have been the subject of the fatal drownings that we've had over the last 10 years in public aquatic facilities. The SwimSafe campaign encourages patrons to inform a staff member of their vulnerabilities specific to them before they enter the water. It also gives staff key information, key safety messages to pass on to those users to help them use the facility safely. So where previously maybe giving them the right advice was not clear or not easy to do, this gives some key messages to staff to give to the patron. So where it arrived at is the 5 tips. So the 5 tips are, you should have these resources in your facility, or if not, they'll be installed shortly, but we sent out a pack to you guys. So you've got these how well can you swim cards, and it says, I can swim a lap of a 25-meter pool unassisted, or I can't swim 1 lap of a 25-meter pool unassisted. And then if they can't swim well, you give them the 5 tips. So the 5 tips are: read the safety signs, enter feet first, stay within your safe depth, and swim with a friend. And sorry, put up your hand for help as well. So that's the 5 tips. Now, where these came from is a little bit more. There's a little bit more behind that. So it's not just LSV or myself, God forbid, just coming up with just whatever 5 tips sounds good to me. So this is a research-based campaign. And after the drownings at Watermark, there was a trial campaign put in place that was evaluated after a year for effectiveness at getting key safety messages across. And then there was some adjustments made. Then after 2 years, another evaluation was made, and we worked out that we needed to go back to the drawing board. So these 5 tips are related directly to drowning research and coronial recommendations, as well as they've gone through what we call focus group testing. So they've been tested against the target audiences. So we went to Richmond Recreation Center and we interviewed a whole bunch of members at that facility who were within the target audience, and we'll talk a bit more about that. And we got them to sort of work out what was going to be the best messaging that would encourage them to identify themselves to staff as being vulnerable. So then we came up with the 5 tips from there. So the aim of it is, like I said, for patrons to inform staff of their vulnerabilities, for staff to then provide the patron with the 5 tips, and the net end result is increased aquatic safety. So I know we spoke about drowning a little bit before, but between 2005 and 2015, there were 36 drowning deaths and 257 non-fatal drowning incidents in Australian public pools. So it does happen much more than it should. 28% of those that drowned were born overseas, and 61% had a pre-existing medical condition. So whilst there was 2 cases in Victoria that we discussed earlier that specifically gave rise to this campaign and this research, it is also a national issue that needs addressing. So one of the key components of understanding why we need to give people the 5 tips, or to give them key safety information, is we need to understand what the key vulnerabilities these patrons have. So for multicultural patrons, and it's not just necessarily the type of people that you've seen in the photo. A lot of them are, you know, Caucasian in appearance as well. And the reality is that a lot of recent arrivals to Australia have come from countries where swimming is not part of the culture. And, you know, going to a public pool is not necessarily an activity that is common in that culture. Or going to the beach. So we're very lucky in Australia, and you probably picked up that I've got a bit of an accent. I'm from Canada, but both in Canada and Australia, we're very lucky that public pools are everywhere, and we've got good beaches, and there's a real cultural propensity to head to aquatic environments to recreate. That's not the case everywhere, and so people come from overseas, and we know that, you know, a huge amount of our population are born overseas. It's something like 50% of Victoria's population are born overseas. We know that a huge amount of our population are born overseas, and that they don't necessarily have that same sort of cultural affinity with aquatic environments. But that when they get here, there is a cultural emphasis on aquatic environments, and so, but as part of you know, integration with our culture, and also, you know, enjoying the sort of many fruits that are very, you know, the wonderful place that this is, involves getting into aquatic environments. So there's a little bit of a gap in the cultural understanding, and there's limited water safety knowledge and a lack of awareness of hazards and risks. There's also generally a lower swimming competency. So for anyone that's aware, drowning death as a global issue is the number one preventable cause of death. So where we look at, you know, some chronic diseases and things like that are preventable, drowning globally is the number one cause of death. And most often it's people drowning in ditches, funnily enough, drowning in ditches, or they slide into a little creek or a dam equivalent, and they drown in that because most places don't have swimming lessons around the world. So we're very lucky that we live in the culture and the society that we do, but I think we take it for granted a little bit. And I know, I'm not sure about your facility, but I know, looking at regional facilities in the population centers like Shepparton, Ballarat, Bendigo, we're having increased, you know, migrant flows to those areas due to cheaper housing prices, and also we're having a lot more using the pool and the rivers and the dams. So it's not just a city issue; it is a regional issue as well. For those with disabilities as well, there are other sort of vulnerabilities for them as well. So I think it's probably fair to say that we probably take for granted that if we don't have a disability, we probably take for granted our able body and able mind sort of status. Not everyone falls into that category, and it's not always very apparent visually either. So some of the factors that can contribute to people being more vulnerable are, you know, side effects of medications that they're on. So it might be a mental health issue. It might not necessarily be a physical impairment, but there could be side effects to that medication where, you know, when they start exercising, or when they're just a little bit more impaired in general. There could be decreased motor coordination. So there's lots of conditions like Parkinson's and you know, other conditions that can decrease motor coordination, that are not necessarily apparent if they have the suitable medication. Slower reaction times, difficulty entering and exiting the water for some disabilities, particularly, you know, the physical ones. Greater risk of episodes such as seizures, and then relying on skills gained earlier in life as well. So they may not have the same ability to rely on other skills, or in this case, this could be someone that's acquired a disability later, or an injury later in life, and, you know, this is the first time back at the pool, or there's a sense that they're safer in that environment, but their physical capabilities have changed, and this is particularly evident in elderly users, and even in users, you know, and they're not really in a vulnerable category, but people just getting back into exercise as well have a much higher risk of heart attack, stroke, and seizures. So SwimSafe as a campaign aims to engage with these patrons and try and make the environment safer for them before they get into it. So it involves displaying and communicating the SwimSafe campaign, identifying who are the vulnerable swimmers, and communicating the 5 tips to those patrons. So there was a program in one of the early iterations of this program where wristbands were used and that type of thing, and some of the research findings found that patrons were less likely to identify themselves to a staff member as being vulnerable if they were going to be sort of singled out by the use of a wristband. So this is where kids love a wristband for watching on water. For adults, it seems a bit more discriminatory, and particularly if they're coming from a cultural background where identification is used as a discriminatory measure by people in authority such as the police and the government and things like that. They're even less likely to engage with what is should be a positive campaign. So this is kind of what the resources look like. So you've got pamphlets at reception. We've got the How Well Can You Swim cards as well, and we've also got a number of banners that go about the facility as well. So I just wanted to sort of pause here. So one of the activities that we have in the SwimSafe manual is that we do a little bit of a workshop activity. Now, we haven't done this virtually before, so we'll have a crack at this. But essentially, what we would like to do is we'd like to take four or five users with a little scenario and sort of work through what we think their vulnerabilities might be. So I'm going to just go into the conversation window here. I'm going to unmute everyone. So it might get noisy all of a sudden. So if you're doing anything silly right now, like baking cookies or whatever you're doing, I'm going to unmute everyone, and we'll get everyone talking again. So actually, can anyone unmute themselves, or are you sort of?
Yeah.
How about?
Yeah, I'm back in action. Am I?
You're back in action. Okay, so there's a little icon, mute button. You can unmute yourself. Okay. All right. So we've prepared these little scenarios. So these are within the SwimSafe manual that everyone should have a copy of. Maybe if you mute your speaker, I'll just mute everyone for a second. There we go. So within the manual, which everyone should have a copy of, if you haven't, your team leader or coordinator will be able to send that out to you. But everyone should have access to this. There's a role play scenario, and there's also a self-assessment, and action plan. So the role play scenario, we'll just go through a couple of those now. So we've got Giovanni here. Can everyone see Giovanni? If you can, just sort of nod or give me a thumbs up. So Giovanni's decided to take his granddaughter to Orbost outdoor pool, let's say. And it's Giovanni's first time in the water for several years, as his kids are all now adults. Because he's recently retired, he has the flexibility to spend more time with his grandchildren. Giovanni is not a strong swimmer and has been afraid of deep water since he fell off a boat as a young boy. So as a lifeguard on pool deck, you notice Giovanni is hesitant in entering the water with his grandchild. So the question to throw out is how would you sort of how would you manage this scenario as a lifeguard? And if anyone is feeling brave and would like to sort of step up to the plate, go for it. If not, I'll just read out a name off the list.
I'll have a go. I reckon I'd ask Giovanni if he'd like to have some fun in the toddler pool with his granddaughter first, so that she could get used to the water without being too worried about him letting her go and her falling down.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd be educating him about the risks in the area and where there's a safer place to be. And that sort of aligns with, stay within your safe depth. These are the deep areas of the pool. Make sure you stay within your safe depth. This is a safe place for you to be. Okay, perfect. Maybe we'll go to the next one. So we've got Adi here, is new to the area, hoping to make some friends in the local community. He attends the facility with the aim to meet new people, but hasn't been exposed to water. As he approaches reception, Adi informs that he can't swim but has heard of the health benefits associated with swimming. What are the 5 tips, and how would you communicate those to Addie? So, if there's anyone from reception, I don't know if we've got a receptionist. I think someone in there said they were a receptionist. We've got customer service team leader. Sounds like a winner. That one. Who's the customer service team leader? Well,
I am.
Hi, how you going?
Sorry, I don't have the thing hasn't flipped over on my screen. So hang on.
You can't see the display. No worries, no worries. Who am I speaking to here?
It's Haley.
Haley, how are you?
Yeah.
Maybe Haley, you could pick a customer service officer who's in the session. We've got a couple to choose from, I'm sure. We've got Megan.
Yep.
We'll
just go Megan then.
Oh, Megan, lucky you, under the bus. Sorry, Megan.
I can't see the screen. Oh, there we go. I was going to say I couldn't see the screen either.
Can you see it now or no?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So Adi, he's come down to the pool with his friends, and he's very clearly coming to the pool for the first time. Would you give Adi the 5 tips?
Yes.
And do you know what they are? Do you remember what they are?
Read the signs.
Yeah.
Stay in your depth.
Yeah.
Hand up for help.
Yep.
Swim with a friend.
Yep.
And
we can go back here. I can rewind to them.
Was it let someone know, or was that on the 5 tips?
Here you go. So you had safety signs, stay within your depth, swim with a friend, put your hand up for help, and enter feet first. So very good. Very good. All right. So there you go. You survived being under the bus. Well done. Who's next here? So the next scenario is Jim. So this is the person that's acquired an injury later in life. So Jim visits the pool and asks to sign up for a membership. When asked about his fitness goals, he explains he's been in a car accident a few months ago and lost the use of his legs. Hopes to get fit and readjust to his new lifestyle. What water safety considerations apply, and what information does Jim need to know? Who would be best placed to deliver this information? So if we can throw that one out to the room, maybe Woof a Dog, if he's still around.
RJ, can you please change the screen because we're still looking at Artie?
Might be a little delay. Can you see Jim now?
No.
No. Okay.
I've got Jim with mine. I don't know if that.
It might just come through a little bit later for you, Mandy. Looks like it's coming through for most. Just might be a little delay in the internet there. Okay, so Jim is essentially he's in a wheelchair now, and he's coming to the pool for the first time since his accident. So is there anyone out there? Maybe Woof a Dog? Are you still around there? There's silence there. He's gone for he's having a nap, I think. The joys of working from home. What about you, Clancy? What do you reckon?
Oh, you put me on the spot. What do I think? Best person to deliver this information? Oh, I don't know. I guess front desk would be all right, but I mean, I guess anyone. Lifeguards probably wouldn't be a bad idea because they'd be able to give him potential gear to help him out, and plus they would obviously, as the photo looks like it suggests, they'd be the one helping him out with the wheelchair machine mover. I don't know what that name's called. Forgot.
Yeah, the hoist. Yeah. Do you guys have hoists at your pools, or do you use a ramp?
Yeah, no, we got a hoist. I just forgot what the fancy word was called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for Jim, it's probably a case of saying, look, you're back at the pool for the first time. Welcome back. Obviously, circumstances for you have changed a little bit. So it's a good opportunity to say, look, these are the 5 tips. And the key one for Jim is probably that, is he here with a friend? Is there somebody here with you today to help you sort of transition into using the pool for the first time? And where can we make sure that you're sort of within a safe depth? So he'd have to be in a fairly shallow area, but at the same time, one of one of the key considerations for, let's say, Jim's lost use of his legs is it needs to be deep enough that his feet aren't dragging along the bottom of the water either. So so maybe there's a bit of a risk-based approach with Jim, and today we might start with a life jacket and then we might go from there. Someone with you today, Jim, to swim with you, and if you need anything at all, put your hand up for help. But the key thing is for the receptionist to advise the lifeguard to give Jim a hand, and to make sure that Jim understands he probably should have a carer. Does the carer, can the carer swim? Does the carer understand what the risks are? This water here is deep. Someone needs to be watching Jim at all times. We'll keep an eye on Jim as well. It seems self-explanatory, but when we think about that incident at Ascot Vale, that should realistically, probably shouldn't have happened with the change in care. There's still a duty of care to the person in your facility. It's still your facility. You still control that environment, particularly as a lifeguard in that space. So it's really important that the information gets to Jim at reception before he's changed, before he's out in the pool deck, that if he needs to bring somebody else with him to the pool that he can, and then likewise managing Jim in the environment as well. Okay. So the next one is A. So A visits the pool with her university friends on a hot day. A is an international student and is happy to be included in the group activity. Her friends do most of the talking at reception, and A does not engage with the reception staff. When A makes her way to the pool, she seems to struggle with her goggles for quite some time while looking around. Should reception be singling A out to give her the 5 tips? How might staff approach the situation with sensitivity? So be keen to hear from another receptionist. Who have we got? Who have we got from reception? We've already spoken to Megan. Anybody else from reception? Paul, maybe. We had Mandy with a comment about a flotation aid. Very good. I have a hand up for assistance. Hand up for assistance. So okay. All right. Maybe I'm just going to pick someone. How about you, Natasha? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear.
Hi, Natasha.
Reading over it again.
I might mute you for a second here, Natasha. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah.
There we go. You might have to unmute yourself. Okay. Can you hear us, Natasha?
Yeah. I would say to the start, like at the reception, should say like the 5 tips just so she understands.
Yep. And
But like it doesn't really seem like she's like really struggling or anything like that at the moment.
well, no. So the key is that we get the information to her before she gets into the aquatic environment. So so it's about recognizing the person that doesn't look familiar with the environment, that seems a bit out of place. So it's about sort of using some of that EQ that we all have to read her interaction with the rest of the group, right? So most of her friends are doing the talking. She's not really engaged with the reception staff. It's clear that she's an international student, or that advice has been made. Do you think we could sort of address this generally and say, hey, is there anyone here who's never been to a pool before? Can everyone here swim? How well can you all swim?
Could you offer like swimming lessons?
100%. That'd be a great. I'm just going to mute again. That'd be a great way to go about it. To say, hey, I think in the first case, so people coming down to the pool, they probably just want to go for a swim recreationally, but just, hey, can everyone here swim 1 lap of the pool, right? We've got the how well can you swim cards. Can everyone here swim 1 lap of the pool? If you can't, make sure you let us know. You can put your hand up for help and the lifeguard will help you. Likewise, be aware that there is deep water in the environment, and this is where it is, because we don't want A to go into the change room, walk out of the change room straight into deep water. Unfortunately, the way that draining happens is very quiet, very silent. Nobody really notices as it happens if they're not directly supervising that person. So the key is to try and get the safety message to the person, and then they understand it before they enter the hazard. Okay, good answer though, Natasha. Christine, so Christine loves swimming and visits the pool 3 mornings a week to do aqua aerobics. She regularly asks the lifeguard for a feedback form, which she normally fills out and then leaves at reception on her way out. Christine is an expert in pool temperatures. I'm sure we all know Christine. As soon as the pool temperature is half a degree out, Christine will be telling you about it. This visit, however, she does not ask for a form and proceeds to pack up her things to leave. She seems a little off today. How should the lifeguard approach Christine? So be keen to hear from maybe someone, a bit of a senior lifeguard here. Is there someone in that space, or a duty manager, or someone in that space? Nobody likes to volunteer, do they? I have to actually call them out, don't I? Thomas, how are you, mate? Can you hear me? Thomas has gone for a while. Oh, here he is. Welcome, Thomas. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Would you just ask her how her day is? Something like that. Just have a chat with her. 100%.
So that would be your, a great sort of way to lead into the conversation. Yep. And sort of from there, you begin to deduce that she's a little bit off, right? So what might you be thinking at that point in time?
I don't know. The pool's the normal temperature today. No, I don't know.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. So I guess I threw Christine in here as a scenario in that she's right in the pocket of pre-existing medical conditions, and she could be right in the pocket of medications and things like that. So she hasn't asked for a form. She's heading out the door. It's a great point to check in how you're feeling today, and see what's going on, and finding, if that person seems a little bit off, deciding to, ask them to, sit down in the first aid room and doing, a secondary survey and/or, determining whether it's an idea to give, nurse on call or the doctor's office a call, or even Ambulance Victoria. They're all happy to take phone calls. These services exist, and so just recognizing that, just because someone comes to the pool every day, when something's a little bit off, it's an idea, particularly if you have a permanent shift and that person, that you just check in with them, because they could be experiencing some sort of medical event. So it's not intended to be a curveball, this one, but it is what it is. Okay, so how do we implement SwimSafe at the pool? So we'll wrap up that sort of scenario there. So successful campaign implementation relies on everyone understanding who the target audience is. So I gave you a little spread of potential target audience. We've got an elderly person, we had multicultural, we had disability, we had someone that couldn't swim very well. So understanding who they are, making sure that we display the campaign materials in the key locations, communicating the 5 tips to those people, and then the active application component is that everybody does their part. So key groups, understanding the target audience, people from the call community, disabilities, pre-existing medical. Everyone can experience difficulty in a pool no matter how a person presents. Yeah, very key information. If the campaign is around, right, the research indicates that people are likely, 50% of people said they would approach staff if they felt they needed to after seeing these materials. So we know that from the research that having this type of signage around, and that people, are knowledgeable, the staff are knowledgeable in the campaign, will encourage people that have a vulnerability to identify themselves to staff. In the absence of something to encourage them to do so, they're not sure what to do, right? They're like, oh, I don't know if I should have said anything. But if we've got signs everywhere that say, make sure you put your hand up for help, then they will. They'll probably complain about the pool temps more as well. So unfortunately, that comes sort of part and parcel with encouraging people to talk to us, but it is really important. You've got to display the materials. So in the pack, there's pull-up banners, there's reception counter stands, there's big posters to put across. If you've got a big wall space, or you've got a big, like that reception area on the timber component there, as well as bollards to put out near the deep water. So put the sign out, don't get out of your depth, where the deep water is, or on the way to the deep water. Don't put it in the change room. Yeah. So you want to communicate the 5 tips prior to patrons entering the hazardous environment. So communicate it on entry, even prior to entry. It should be on the web page, should be on your social media. use the How Well Can You Swim card at reception to guide conversation. Particularly if you don't know where to start, just, hey, just checking in, how well can you swim? If they look like they're from the target audience, how well can you swim? If you know that they come there every day and they can swim well, you don't need to harass them every time they come. Just if they look new, you don't recognize them, ask them how well they can swim. Change rooms, having important information in the back of cubicle doors or areas where movement is corralled. So putting the information where people are going to see it, and then near the hazards. So entry points to pools where deep water exists, a long footpath from changing areas to deep water, and where other hazards exist, like sudden drop-offs. To be successful, it's important that all staff actively promote the SwimSafe campaign to all patrons. So when we did the trials, we did some mystery guest visits, and we found in general that the lifeguards understood the campaign pretty well, that it was very similar to the understanding that they already had from Watch Around Water and their pool lifeguard course and in service training, but that the reception staff didn't necessarily understand why they needed to, ask people about SwimSafe. Often KPIs are a little bit different. We're talking about membership sales and getting people to group fitness classes as quickly as possible and printing off tickets, as opposed to water safety, which is what the lifeguards are ingrained to think. So it's really important that all staff actively promote the campaign at every level. Consistency is the key. So making sure that we all know what the 5 tips are and what the signs look like for them, and that they can be referenced. Yeah. So we have roles and responsibilities with this campaign. So it's not just a case of here's another campaign that the receptionists need to sort of roll out. There are management responsibilities as well, and there are responsibilities for all roles within the facility. So management needs to ensure the campaign is suitably resourced, ensure the campaign is on the agenda of management and team meetings, and complete SwimSafe training like everybody else. And I can see we've got a number of team leaders in today, so well done to you guys. And then we also have duty managers and supervisors who play a key role in enforcing, not enforcing, but sort of maintaining the standards. So ensure that operational staff are carrying out the duties, ensure that the SwimSafe message is clear and consistent and being delivered clearly and consistently at reception. Ensuring that staff are provided with the necessary SwimSafe resources. So is there enough pamphlets out? Is there enough How Well Can You Swim cards? If there aren't any left, telling management to order more or whatever the case may be. Ensuring that the campaign resources are displayed and available each shift each day. So if the cleaners move the pull-up banner, that gets put back in the right spot. If the A-frame's being moved off the pool deck because we were, wheeling around the pool covers, that gets put back out where it needs to be. That's the sort of stuff we want the supervisors to look at. Lifeguards. The lifeguards need to positively enforce the SwimSafe messages on a day-to-day basis. So provide SwimSafe materials to poolside customers. Maintain situational awareness, which is, this person's come in and they're coming in a wheelchair. I've never seen them before, right? Effective supervision of persons in and around the water. SwimSafe is not intended to replace any component of the Pool Lifeguard Award, only to enhance the communication methods for managing vulnerable swimmers. And so if the swimming ability of any patron is deemed to be inadequate for the environment, those patrons should be moved into a safe area and provided with restrictions if necessary. So the lifeguard can still, rule and force as necessary and tell people where to be. Learn to swim teachers should discuss water safety in the campaign during swim lessons. Water Safety Week's a great week to do it, and utilize their relationships with the target audiences to communicate the key messages. So if you've got a Sudanese refugee family in your swim program and you see them every week for swim lessons, in the recreational swim component before and after the lesson, did you know that, this is a safe area to be, and that, stay within your safe depth. If the 14-year-olds are coming to the pool together, they should swim with a friend, and someone should be, keeping an eye on them. Customer service staff, they probably provide the most important part of the campaign, in that they are the central point that all patrons must interact with in order to get into the environment. People can walk past lifeguards or choose not to interact with them, but generally, it's particularly casual users who are thinking about, they have to interact with the customer service officer, if they're swiping in through a turnstile and things like that as well, usually it goes past the reception area. If it doesn't in your facility, it'd be an idea to think about how you interact with those patrons, whether it be by EDM, newsletters, or by signage. but they provide all the information about the facility to people entering the facility. They need to ensure they have sufficient stock of the SwimSafe materials, the resources, and let their management know if more needs to be ordered. And they need to rotate reception-based SwimSafe materials, including the SwimSafe information, into new member packs and so on and so forth. So you should put a pamphlet or a brochure into new membership packs and or the 5 tips. So who here is familiar or not familiar with the guidelines for safe pool operations? Is there anyone that hasn't heard of this document? Or I'm just sort of seeing a lot of, shaking of heads. So the guidelines for safe pool operations is a national document. It's written by industry for industry, and it sort of sets what the standards should be in pools for safety. So there are a few sections that say you should have a program for special consideration for vulnerable swimmers. You should have a risk assessment for vulnerable swimmers. You should have policies to encourage swimmers to communicate their vulnerabilities to staff. You should have increased communication with vulnerable swimmers, implement programs targeting drownings, and increase communication. So I think I might have said that twice, but one's at older adults and one's at multicultural. So essentially, this program has been designed to not only be effective at reaching the target audience, but also aligning with the guidelines for safe pool operations. So from here, what you guys have is the facility team leaders and the coordinators and the managers have in the SwimSafe manual, there's a self-assessment checklist. I can bring that up on the screen here, but effectively it's the steps to socialize from here. So what it does, excuse me, I need to clear my throat, is it gives a little bit of a checklist to determine how the facility is managing SwimSafe, to determine how the facility is promoting, communicating SwimSafe, identify areas for improvement, and identify training and education opportunities available for staff to identify any barriers to the management promotion of SwimSafe. So there's a little bit of a template here, but basically, do you have the signs of entry? Yes, no, or not applicable? Do you have that information on your website? Do you have membership conditions which incorporate vulnerable swimmer information? Do you encourage older people to notify staff of any pre-existing medical conditions? Do you have SwimSafe signage entry exits to changing facilities? Do you have a public education announcement on PA for vulnerable swimmers? Is SwimSafe embedded into your internal operating documents like your operations manual, your lifeguard manual, supervision plan, etc.? Is SwimSafe covered during your induction process for new staff? So everyone participating in this session, you can say yes to those, and then if there's anyone outstanding, that they would then need to go through this process as well. Is SwimSafe included in the facility in service training? Is SwimSafe included in the facility in service training for supervisors and lifeguards, receptionists, etc.? Is SwimSafe explained during the swim lesson enrollment process? Same with Water and Water, SwimSafe Water and Water, swim lesson enrollment process. Are sufficient lifeguards rostered to meet the needs of additional vulnerable swimmers? Training provided to staff. Are activities restricted in areas of a depth greater than 900 millimeters or 0.9 meters? And then, so on and so forth. Is the endorsement sticker out there? Have we got a pull-up banner? Have we got the counter stands up? So there's a little bit of an implementation checklist. And then, are the lifeguards carrying the cards? Is a pull-up banner on display? Is the A-frame near the hazards? And then we do this in each zone. So that's essentially that. It's all in that manual. Has anyone got any questions? Well, we've got about sort of 5 minutes to cover off on questions. I'd be more than happy to answer questions. And I thank everyone for enduring a boring PowerPoint conversation from me. Normally it's a little bit more interactive when we're face to face. Any questions from me? You'd have to unmute yourself. Or you can type. I can see Mandy's typing something. Make conversation, ask what plans. Oh, that's the previous comment. Okay, for Christine. Yep, good stuff. Any questions? Cherie, you got any questions? No, you're shaking your head. Sam Stevenson, you got any questions? No, no problems. Does anyone feel like this is too complex or too difficult? It's pretty straightforward. Yeah, you put up the posters, they come in the doors, you go, you look like you're a vulnerable swimmer. Here's How well can you swim? Oh, I can't swim very well. Okay, no worries. Here's the 5 tips. Yeah, it should be pretty straightforward. The key information is having the materials up in the right places. Everyone knows what the 5 tips are. Everyone knows what SwimSafe is and can communicate that verbatim. As long as you can do that, I think it's almost impossible to stuff it up. So if you've got the program in place, you shouldn't have any critical incidents in this vein. I think it will definitely encourage patrons. The key component is identifying them when they come in reception and asking them how well can you swim. Yeah. Okay. All right. No questions, none whatsoever.
RJ, I just want to know, with Watch Around Water, we do 2 training sessions a year. Will this be implemented as well twice a year, or?
It's really up to you guys. So we have a program in place. I'm not sure if Kelly signed up to it, but have you guys got a service member out your way? I think you do in your facility, an LSV service member. But essentially, we have a program which is the LSV Champions Program, and you become an affiliate of LSV. We send you all of the training resources for all of our in-service training suites: pool lifeguard, swim teacher, Watch Around Water, SwimSafe, and that person then becomes able to deliver all of the LSV training resources using our agendas and templates and PowerPoints and all of that stuff. And we quality control the materials every year. We review and update and train the service members on how to use them. So I think you guys have one, but if not, that's the path forward. I think is it to get someone trained up in that space, and then they can deliver this as many times as they like. I'm not sure who was asking that question. Was that you, Andrew?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Yeah. Does that sound reasonable?
It does. Kelly implements the Watch Around Water, so maybe she'll do that.
Yep. Okay. Perfect. Yep. We can get in touch there. Any other questions from anyone? Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for listening in. I hope it wasn't too painful for you all, but I can see a few. I'm sure you've listened to lots of webinars and Zoom meetings over the journey, but thanks very much to everyone for listening in. Definitely our thoughts are with you out there, and we're looking forward to doing some sort of live workshop as soon as we can. Take care, everyone, and I'll end this meeting and end the recording as well. Thank you. Cheers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate.